Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of the Reimagine podcast. Laura, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Paul. It's great to be here as always.
It is. We have just a little bit of hint of fall in the air. I think 90s dropped to 70s pretty quick.
It did. Now it's almost feeling like football season.
It is. It is.
Almost.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, we have a guest today who it really is somebody we met out in Las Vegas at a very, I think it was 108 degrees that week. So, Laura, do you want to set us up for this discussion today?
Yeah, happy to do that. Mark, it's great to see you again. Today with us, we have Mark Seghers, CEO and co-founder of Inspire Health Tech. So, Mark, it's great to have you on. And for the benefit of our listeners, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how the company got started.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks. Happy to be on the show. And yeah, it's definitely a lot more livable temperature right now here in Wisconsin. I think it's like 70 degrees than it was when we met in Vegas, Paul. So I've had a long history of health insurance technology. And, I started in IT, programmer, analyst, project manager, all that stuff. And then I got into e-commerce and e-business back when that was a thing, leading that for two national carriers. And then I decided to kind of jump out into the real world, so to speak, of kind of internet entrepreneurship. I joined a company called Norvax, became Go Health, started that company. And since then, I've had several startups, led them to exit. And, it's all been about insurance technology, almost my entire career. And my eye has always been on what are the win-win-wins, right? The technology that helps everybody in the chain. It helps not only the carrier, the agent, but it also helps that consumer. And that's the stuff I think that really interests me. Technology has always been about efficiencies, right? So, but I think you can have those efficiencies and still serve the consumer at the same time. And that's sort of one of the axioms, I think, of e-business, right? Back when that was a big deal, it was always about focusing on that end user, right? Because they were so fickle, they could go anywhere on the internet. If you really have to serve them if you want to hold their attention. So that led me to kind of this company, Inspire Health Tech, which I started about a year and a half ago. And my last startup was acquired by a leading global analytics firm. They have the tools to help carriers, help carriers understand the out-of-pocket costs that their consumers were experiencing, and they wanted to help the consumer, get an expectation of the out-of-pocket costs with the coverage that they offered. So I thought this would be a great tool to take to consumers, the same kind of concept, only across multiple carriers, in fact, every carrier. And I thought it would be great, especially in the senior world. I think age 65 is just not that old anymore. And as it relates to technology, especially, and with COVID may be a turning point, more and more seniors are online looking for Medicare. So I thought if we could take a tool that helped consumers think about costs and think about what plan might be right for them and remove all bias, right? All distribution bias and really make this a personalized thing, I thought it would be a great thing to offer. So that kind of is what the spark a year and a half ago that really kind of got us going with Inspire Health Tech.
Yeah, it's a challenging problem. And I'll tell you, Medicare it's a complicated process for people going through this at age 65 for the first time. It's even harder sometimes for agents to sort through all the choices that are out there, the choices that change, to give the right advice to people. So just to make it real for people. So listen, I'm 67. I'm actually diabetic, and I need to figure out what plan is right for me. I mean, Mark, what are the complexities there in terms of picking a plan that I've got to sort through here?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And And getting to your question, really kind of sorting through that complexity, we're providing technology that can help that consumer sort of with an advanced look, right? Sort of like when you go to the Best Buy, to buy a TV, what I like to do first is go into Consumer Reports and do some research, right? Because I recognize that salesperson, they may have products that they want to sell, and they may have products that they're pushing for one reason or the other, and that's great. That's just the way the world works. But I want to be pre-informed as a consumer, right? So this complexity it's really about a disparity of information. The agents and the carriers understand their products and understand where they fit in the market, of course. But the consumer, it's the first time every time for Medicare consumers when they turn 65. It's a whole new world. And in many cases, they've been insulated from even understanding any kind of health insurance because their employer just sort of covers it. It comes out of out of the check. They don't really think about, the world of possibilities and now suddenly they're thrown to the market. And that complexity, I think, is made a little worse sometimes by some of, not all of, but some of the bad actors out there in the internet marketing world who are, sometimes deceptive. They make promises that they don't follow through on, or they pretend that they're offering sort of an inside track when in fact they're sometimes not. Also, sometimes they promise advice, and they promise even get your quotes here online. But then when the consumer enters all their information, instead they get a thank you screen. It says, thank you, agents will be calling you. And now that consumer, their phone is ringing off the hook, their emails are coming in, and they've become a lead. And so it hasn't helped them any with the complexity, really. It's just sort of, now they are talking to lots of different agents, each selling their own plan or a few plans. And it hasn't really helped. And in fact, it's led these consumers to be in some ways maybe jaded about the whole online experience for Medicare. I've talked to some seniors who just, they're not going back because of the experience they had last year. And so what we wanted to do was sort of help with that pre-information before they talk to the agent, help them understand their market and their zip code for their gender, their age, and also considering their medical and pharmacy needs, what plans might be right for them in the market, and what are their out-of-pocket costs going to be? Not just categorically, Medicare Advantage, Medicare Sub, but within category, which represent the largest out-of-pocket commitment for them given their conditions and their prescriptions. So we wanted to give them this information before they talk to the agent. And I'm not saying it should replace the agent. We're not, we don't currently offer online enrollment and things like that. I think there is a place for that, but we don't offer that. What we do is we then, after pre-informing the consumer, we then hand over that consumer to the agent when they're ready. And that information that they looked at becomes shared context. That complexity that you're asking about, Paul, really becomes a shared context now that the agent and consumer can talk around, much in the way that you'd show a Consumer Reports to the guy at Best Buy or the person at Best Buy and say, this says that, this maybe, doesn't align with what you're telling me, or maybe it does, right? And now that agent can add other information that might not be in that original presentation. Make sure the doctor's a network, or they can talk with confidence about the plans they sell. And maybe the algorithm says it costs $5 more a year or something like that. They can say, well, that might be right, but here is some more information that I think is relevant. They can talk about, supplemental benefits, or they can talk about unique needs that don't necessarily meet that first quick scan.
So you mentioned something that I think is important here, and you talked about how the tool removes bias. Talk to us a little bit more about the AI and the machine learning element. How is that informed or taught when helping to make these decisions?
Yeah, that's a great question. So bias is, when I speak of bias, I'm speaking to the fact that most agents out there, you might say almost every agent out there, does not represent every single plan for every single consumer that's out there, right? So they have an inherent bias and a quite understandable bias to lean their sales process towards the products they represent. Because they represent, Humana, Aetna, or whatever, United Health, whatever the plans they offer, and that becomes sort of the universe for that sale. So what I thought would be better is if we could present a product that shows all plans, all options, and then hand it over to an agent who's confident about the products they sell and confident about that market and can explain all the ins and outs of why their products are better. And more and more, I think CMS and marketers and agents are understanding that they shouldn't be afraid of that market, and they shouldn't be afraid of that engendering trust by showing all of the options and then talking about the products they sell within the full market context. And I think that's where things are going, and I think it's a very ethical way to sell. And more and more we see agents and marketers leaning more towards that. And of course it aligns with what CMS is looking for, we believe, with their latest disclosures that they're asking for marketers to have on there, to disclose that if they don't offer everybody, that they should say that. And so and they should be very clear about what they offer and what they don't offer, as opposed to being deceptive and then doing a bait and switch and now they're a lead. I think that's really it. We're trying to, by bias, what we're trying to do is we're trying to align with, a market concept. We're trying to show the full market, right? So now the second thing that you mentioned is related to personalization, and that's where the AI comes in. So it's the openness and showing everybody, I think, is just that the concept of the unbiased. But I think the personalization is the other thing. And more we see there are companies out there that are trying to align top of funnel recommendations to the needs of that consumer. Now, some of them just say, if they focus in category, Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, or maybe finding out, do they qualify for a special needs plan, that kind of thing, and they leave it at that. And then they talk to the agent who sells the plans that they sell. But what we're talking about is something a little deeper than that. And our AI comes into play when we understand a little something about the consumer, not just where they live, what their birth date is, what their gender is, but also we explain what we offer, and then they opt in and they say, yes, I want you to help me choose. And now we have reasons to ask. We're not discriminating, we're not cherry picking. What we're doing is our partners, that is in the marketing side, are asking a couple extra questions relating to things like chronic conditions and prescriptions, etc. And what we then do is we profile that person against millions of other people. We find people like them, and then we find out what's covered and what's not. And then that represents an estimation of what their out-of-pocket, an estimation of what their out-of-pocket will probably be mathematically, based on a number of like individuals and their actual claims that they experienced. And we adjudicate those claims then through every single plan available in the market to present to them the out-of-pocket expectations, which is another great tool, we believe, in understanding what plan might be right for a person. I certainly, when I become a senior in the market, I'm going to want to understand, which plan may have the greatest likelihood of minimizing my out-of-pocket costs. Yeah. And that's one of the things we offer.
Oh, Mark, this is good. Now, just for our listeners who haven't gone down this rabbit hole, I'm just going to sort of step back, Mark. You can correct me if I'm trying to get really good at talking about this in as simple terms as possible. So when you turn 65, you must sign up for Medicare. Now, Medicare Part A covers 80% of your expenses. Now, if you're healthy, you never go to the doctor, great. 20%, 0%, 0 of 20% is not much. However, you need to go to doctor visits. You need something's going to come up. That 20% could be 20% of a pretty large number. So, two options here. One is go down the Medicare supplement route. Option two is you go the Medicare Advantage route. You can't do both. You have to do one. Now, Medicare supplement typically is a choice that affluent people will make, or people in rural areas where there isn't a great network or there's not a great hospital network in place. Because what it does is, if Laura's a doctor in Florida, I live in New York, I travel down to Florida, she takes Medicare, I generally can just go in there and I'll get reimbursed for it. Now, Medicare supplement, weird set. Okay, great. I'm going down that track. Oh, there's plan A, G, F, and you can't make this one up. All the products, by the way, are exactly the same, just priced differently. Can't make this one up. Or Medicare Advantage, which is more like an HMO. So you don't have as much money. You're not as affluent, which is the majority of people. By the way, the government has really been steering people there towards Medicare Advantage. Looks more like an HMO. Mark, this is a multi-part question. So, pick one of the biggest robust markets you're in. How many Medicare plans are available for consumers? What's the biggest number to market? Do you know offhand?
Well, in terms of the number of plans a person can see in any area, I think I saw a number that it's about 34.
Yeah,
is the average number of plans that a person can see, and that's that you get to the confusion. It's really
so
hard
say I have diabetes or I've got some special drug treatment. I may have a cheap, I go the Medicare Advantage route. It may look cheap, right? But it turns out, right, that medicine I'm going to pay a huge. It's not reimbursed in the plan, correct?
And really it depends, based on chronic condition and the utilization associated with the chronic conditions, together with prescriptions and which plans cover which. There are differences there, and so that's when an agent will generally, most of them will, help with that, right? So, and that's what our tool helps the consumer sort of understand in advance, which plans might be more aligned to them personally.
So Laura asked you about the data model. So let's just I want to push a little farther here. So I want to think about how forward looking is this? If I've got a certain health condition that is going to get progressively worse and worse over time, and expenses are going to go up, do you have that factored into your model?
Yes, we do. We don't look too far in advance because there's really no way of knowing when you look past a certain window, right? So we have a 2-year look forward, so basically we're taking a person who's already, let's say that somebody's turning 65, we're looking at people who are similar to them and are like 1 year older, and then looking back at what their claims were in what would be the next year for this person turning 65, if that makes sense. So it's like a 12 to 24 month look period, or look forward for this person in terms of the claims that we expect will be incurred, and the coverage of those claims by carrier. So if that makes sense, right? And there's different situations, so there's no exact number but we try to look as far ahead as we can based on the people that are profiled for against that individual.
Next hard question, which is rating histories of carriers. And I don't want to disparage any carriers in the market, but some of them have great rates at 65, but if you kind of look over time, the rates get pretty high when you get out to 70, 71, 72, where if you're going to have to come back and find another plan, it may be really tough.
Yes, and I think it's important for people to look again, and not be content in the plan that they're in. And I think I saw a study from Kaiser Permanente that showed that most people, and sorry, I don't remember the exact number, but an alarming majority of people do not reconsider if the plan that they have is still the right plan for them from year to year. And I think they should. And I think they should consider that. And because that the plan that's right for them may
Okay,
change as
last one,
time
then
goes
Laura
on.
is up here. How do you, could you, would you factor in consumer reviews of service? Claims payment. Difficulty getting reimbursement from any of the carriers.
Yeah, and I think that's where the agent can come in. Well, for one thing, we do offer star ratings along with our information, and I think that's one important consideration. We have multiple data sources. It's not just the AI. We do provide other information such as star ratings that go into helping a person have some confidence about that plan. But again, we're also not replacing agents, right? So if agents understand things about a company or a plan that aren't explained in that first look, that's really their job, is to help fill in the gaps.
So you mentioned, evolution. So people and technology continue to evolve and they will continue to do so. And you mentioned star ratings just a moment ago, but how do you adapt to experience expectations? So as things continue to move forward and change, expectations will evolve along the same set, one would assume. What are some of the best listening tools that you have that help you with that?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. What we do is when we have partners who are Medicare marketers, and who drive leads and aggregate leads and sell leads, and we're helping them to create a better, more informed lead that's obviously then more valuable for that agent, because the agent now is talking about the plans, talking about plans and among the set that might be right for that person. So the conversation doesn't have to start back at what is Medicare and what are your options. It can start at further down the road, and can expedite that sale and really kind of get down into the specifics. So now we also sell to agents. We sell leads to agents, and the leads have come through that process already, and that agent receives the plans that might be right for that person, and they have that context. So marketers and agents. Now sometimes it's the same entity, right? Sometimes that agent is also a marketer, and they're consuming the leads themselves. So now when that agent is making sales or not making sales, they're listening to the consumer, they're typing in, call dispositions, what happened in the call, did the person choose one of the top plans or not? We're getting weekly statistics on the match and the success of the match, and we're also having monthly calls with each of our Medicare agencies to talk about the value of this tool, not just in making the calls more efficient, but in inspiring confidence and helping with that sale. And we're going to be asking a lot of questions around that. This is going to be our first real big AEP that we're hitting hard. So a lot of these metrics we don't have yet, but we're really excited to gather, right? And it's also the rapid disenrollments that will or will not happen with our consumers that came through our process versus the ones that came from other sources. It'll be really, really interesting to see, if the use of our tool indeed engenders trust and indeed represents a lower percentage of the rapid disenrollments through the open enrollment, free look, or the time frame where a consumer can change their mind. We're hoping that it helps consumers stay with that plan because of the confidence that they have, because they were actually a part of the process. They actually did some advanced research, and they're together with that agent choosing a plan and talking through the full market. We believe that this confidence will engender trust, which will keep that person, on board with that choice going forward. It's all of these metrics. I mean, I could talk, for way too long for your listeners about all the things we're interested in learning together with our partners.
We're headed into that period where I think anybody in the Medicare supplement, Med Advantage business is about right. We're all buckling our seatbelts here and hoping the work we've done will pay off this year. Just switching gears a little bit, Mark. I mean, this is not your first rodeo, and we do have a lot of listeners on here who are startups or innovation leaders at companies. We've had some startups on who've done a fabulous job raising VC money. Okay. Wow, has the environment changed over the last 6 to 12 months for finding VC money? We've had some other people who've been really good at bootstrapping. We had James Benham on a month or two ago, who has just done some really interesting things on the commercial P&C side without actually getting any VC funding. How do you build a company today? What advice would you give people who are in this insurtech environment, or they are either currently founded, they want to be founder? How do you build something like this and fund it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. And all I can do is give my own personal opinion and kind of generalize a little bit. I think what matters most, especially in today's environment, is proof and is validation. And a smart man once said to me, "Nothing happens until somebody sells something," right? And I think that's especially true in this environment. Validation comes when you have customers that believe in your product, even though they know it's a new product. They believe it makes sense, and they believe that something needs to change and that you have the right idea. And I think you need to find innovative customers. Well, first of all, you need to focus and do one thing really well. And then you need to find somebody who is also innovative, and then help them be a part of that journey and share your metrics, be in that together. And I think that's the way to go. And then once you have those customers on board and you've shown that something's different here, that these metrics are better than what the previous market or the other competitors have, I think then you have a really compelling story. Because that big question is, hey, it sounds like a great idea, but I don't understand your domain. So we got other companies that have made sales. So we'll talk to you later. Call us when you have some sales. So I think that's the key: is focus and find innovative customers as partners, and then then go after the right investors who understand the market, and I think you'll see better traction.
So I'm going to ask you an even more difficult question here. Mark, Paul asked you the how. I'm going to ask you the why. Why is it that you wake up every day and do what you do? What inspires you?
Great question. And thanks for using the word inspire as part of our company name. What inspires me, and what it always has inspired me, I think, is doing something that I believe makes a difference, doing something that can really help people, and it won't be too many years before I'll be in the senior market. And I've seen so many seniors struggle with the market. I've also seen a lot of marketers and agencies struggle by driving in leads to the old model. And we see some of the big players out there are struggling. The last AEP was very difficult for some very large internet marketers. And I think the game needs to change. And I think anytime a market needs to change, I think going back to my example with e-business, the focus on that end customer is always a good place to start. So what motivates me the most is finding an idea that nobody really maybe is doing a certain way, validating that idea, and then carrying it out and feeling good that my company is actually helping people. I've spent a lot of years just, programming and providing consultation. And, for many years, I didn't really know at the end of the day if what I did did any good. So as I later in my career here, I think that's what motivates me, and I think what will motivate me for many more years is aligning myself with technology that's actually helping people.
That's great. So, Mark, listen, thanks for spending time with us. What's the best way for people to find more about your company and get in touch with you?
Yeah, great. I think you can just email us at info@inspireht.com, or just email me, mark@inspireht.com. That's probably the best way. You can also check us out on the web at inspireht.com. And we'd love to talk to people, and now whether that be internet marketer who wants to maybe raise the stakes a little bit, improve the value of the leads that they generate, or maybe it's an agency that's looking for a tool that help them align to the needs of the customer and inspire trust and confidence in that consumer and sell it in less time. Or maybe it's an agency affinity. A senior affinity, and that senior affinity just wants to help their members, an association or a group that provides content for aging in place, aging at home. They want tools to help seniors, and our tool can give personalized and unbiased advice to seniors. So anyone who just wants to talk, just give me a call or email us, and we'd love to hear
Excellent.
from you.
All right. Well, Laura, thanks. Mark, thanks. And hey, listen, join us again next week for another episode of the Reimagine podcast. Thanks.